For a better listening experience, please watch this installment of LifeClub on tashimajones.com/TV or download our app, TJMTV, available on iOS and Android devices. Enjoy. On this episode, we discuss confidence, rejection, and how both are connected. Tune in as we discover what true confidence is, how to deal with rejection, and more right here on LifeClub. Hey, Tashima Jones here. Super excited that you are tuning in to LifeClub with me, Tashima Jones. Today we are speaking about confidence and rejection. I truly believe that these two concepts are strongly linked together, and as we speak more about each of them, I hope that you can make the connection as well. So first, I want to start with this concept of confidence. So the root word, or the root meaning, if you will, of this concept called confidence is to have full trust in. It is to completely rely on a person or a thing. And when we dig a little deeper into that concept pertaining to the individual, we have to really be mindful of the things that we are confident in when it comes to ourselves. Oftentimes we misplace this idea of confidence, and it comes off as being conceited or being egotistical or being braggadocious and things of that nature. And we see that in so much of our culture and society, and oftentimes we are even taught that that is the true meaning and the true sense of this concept of confidence. But what I have come to know is that confidence is quietness. It is stillness. It is knowing who you are and whose you are and where you are going. The reality of the matter is this: to have full trust in a thing, to have full trust in a person, you have to try that person. You have to experience that person. You have to go through life and events and relationships and truly deem this person as certified, as genuine, as authentic. And I think too often we are trying to operate in something or as someone outside of ourselves that we don't even have a foundation upon which we could rest that full trust. It's so important and so vital for us to know who we are in order to truly embody this concept of confidence. Now, speaking a little bit more about this concept of rejection, the root meaning of this word is to throw back. It is literally to eject something behind you. And a lot of us have experienced moments and even bouts of rejection, especially in our childhood. Remember, we always go back to that little self, our 5-year-old self, or the little baby experiencing life for the first time. And so much of what we experience in our adulthood is learned behavior from our childhood. So if you ever felt neglected or rejected, be it from a parent, a family member, a friend, or culture and society in general, you may have lost the sense of self. And I always say that our life and our journey is literally coming back to who we were truly created to be. And throughout our childhood, that authenticity is oftentimes stripped away from us by the people closest to us, whether it was an issue of rejection, being ignored, being thrown back, or whether it was in the form of simple neglect where there wasn't necessarily any direct sense of rejection as far as someone telling you you're not good enough, someone telling you you're not worthy enough. Oftentimes the neglect is simply just to be ignored, where there's no direct form of rejection, but at the same time there's no direct form of love and compassion. I really struggled with this concept of confidence growing up and even into my 20s, and even early 30s, where I really struggled with this concept of confidence. And I remember sitting down and just meditating and praying about this concept called confidence. I didn't want to be conceited, but I definitely didn't want to be a doormat anymore either. And what I have truly learned is that, once again, confidence is this stillness, it's this quietness, it's this full trust in the person or the thing that you can rely on. And digging a little deeper into self-confidence, you have to understand that you are not self-made, so there's only so much you can rely on yourself. Oftentimes, you may find yourself doing things that you never thought you would do. I know I have experienced that in my life, and the more authentic I became, the more transparent I became about who I am and the experiences that I've gone through, I have truly come into this space where it's no longer about the external things that I rely on. It is so much more of an inside job. And that is where we find confidence. Confidence is really relying on the you that was created, and more importantly, the source that actually created you. A lot of us are flailing around and lacking confidence because we are trying to walk in the shoes of someone else. We are trying to be the person that society wants us to be. We're trying to be the person that we think we should be versus the people we were created to be. And that's why doing that inner work is so vital and is so important, because you cannot fully rely on something that you don't know. You cannot fully rely on something that is foreign to you. You cannot fully rely on something that was crafted and designed by somebody else and given to you as a demo or as a model. You truly have to do the inner work to arrive at this place where you know who you are. Because again, confidence is not being egotistical. It's not bragging about what you may have accomplished or what you own or material possessions. Confidence is being fully aware of the inner self. Let's just take a deep breath on that. Yes, being confident is really about knowing who you are, because when you know a thing, you are better equipped to using it properly. And that is so vital and so pivotal to knowing who we are as people. That was good right there. That was so good, because one of the major things that I always say when I'm speaking about belief and what we truly know is our names. Like, we have practiced our names, depending on how old you are, for 25, 35, 40 years. No one can walk up to you and call you something other than who you know you are, other than your name, and have you answer. And even if you do respond, it's not going to be yes, it's going to be, are you speaking to me? And what we have to understand is that we are called to know ourselves just as clearly as we know our names. And again, that's why so many of us are lacking in confidence, because we are either disillusioned about who we are, or we are trying to fit into someone else's shoes. And those shoes are going to be either too big or too small. And when you find yourself failing in that area of confidence, you have to go back into what you believe about yourself. What do you believe about yourself? Oftentimes we are stuck in this continuous loop about a story that's not even true about who we are. And that story was crafted through the experiences that we've gone through the trauma that we've gone through culture and society, through people maybe disappointing us, and I have a whole concept of disappointment, but I'm not going to go there right now. Perhaps that's another topic we'll speak about. But We are constantly feeding ourselves this story that has been crafted by the traumatic and even the good experiences that we've had. But when it is not spaced or rooted in truth, you have to eradicate that story. You have to shift your paradigm. And I truly believe, once again, that our journey through life is really coming back to the true self. And a few ways to actually do that is to simply open up yourself to finding out that answer. At one point in my life, I had checked off all of the boxes that I thought would equal happiness. And when I woke up one day and realized that I wasn't happy, I had to literally have a moment of silence and really ask the question of who am I? Where did I come from? And where am I going? Remember that inner reality creates the outer form. And oftentimes we are trying to fix ourselves, or we're trying to craft and create a self from external things. So we go to school, we get the good job, we get married, we have the child, we buy the house, we get the car, and we still wind up not being happy. Because in all honesty, external and material things are never going to equate to the inner being. Now, the inner being can express itself in those things. The inner being can create those things from within, but those things can never replace the inner being. And that's why this concept of the universe and this concept of creation being in control really doesn't equate truth. Because when we think about ourselves in just the human capacity, we cannot sit here and say, this book that I wrote is me. Or rather, this book that I wrote is greater than me. We cannot say this house that I bought is greater than me. And oftentimes we live our lives like that. We are worshiping the things that were created by us. We are worshiping the product of our imaginations. We're worshiping our work. We're worshiping our craft. We're worshiping our friends and our family and man, and not recognizing that the external thing can never truly create the internal thing. Remember, the inner reality creates the outer form. And the more you recognize that truth, and the more you start to express that truth in your life, the more authentic you will become. And yes, the more confident you will become, because you are aware of the concept of this thing I called birth. You are aware of this reality that anything that you get to experience in the internal realm is birth from, that anything that you get to experience in the external realm is truly birthed from the internal realm. I will forever say this on LifeClub. We have all acknowledged that we live in a spiritual realm. We cannot get away from that truth. And I think the more we start to accept that truth and operate in that truth, the more beautiful our lives will be. Once again, we are speaking about this concept called confidence. To have confidence is to have full trust in a thing and in a being. And when we recognize this truth, we no longer look at the external factors of life to validate us, but we look at the inner being, the person that we were created to be, and start to walk so much in that superpower called us, that then we are able, and in that driver's seat, if you will, to create the external world that we actually live in. Oftentimes we get it twisted and we start to have more confidence, and that's truly what worship is. Worship is having confidence in a thing so much so that you acknowledge it, that you give it attention, that you give it energy. That's all that worship is. It is truly celebrating a thing for what it is. It's relying on that thing so much so that you change your perspective and you change your behavior in order to cater to and sustain that thing. So, getting back to confidence, We have to be mindful of what we are putting our confidence in. And a sure way of understanding that is thinking about the moments in time that you may be up against a problem. Where do you go for your solution? Do you seek finance? Do you seek people? Do you seek education? Do you seek relationships? Do you seek spirit? Do you look within yourself to find the solution? And there you will find the very thing that you have confidence in. And once again, when we speak about this concept of rejection, to AKA be thrown back, we have to really look at the areas in our lives where we felt as if we were pushed back, on the back burner, if you will. Where are these moments in time? Where are these experiences in your life where you have felt rejected? Because rejection this concept of being thrown back is also can be seen as being chipped away. I truly believe that as a child, we have this idea of who we are, and we have such a pure perspective of who we are, and we have such a mass and expansive imagination of who we are and what we could actually do. And little by little, as we go throughout life and we experience different people, different places, and different events, that purity and that confidence is chipped away slowly but surely. And then we arrive in this space called adulthood, and we're trying to function on this childhood mentality of rejection, of not being good enough, of not being pretty enough, not being smart enough, not being worthy enough, not being fly enough. And when we go through those things and we arrive in this space called adulthood, we do not really know how to function properly. Because if confidence wasn't instilled in us as we experience those events, those people, and those spaces, we really don't know how to maneuver through life. And one of the things that I have learned is that this concept of school, how you go into a space and you are being told what to do over and over and over again. And then when we arrive in adulthood, we may find ourselves feeling lost because we don't necessarily have that parent telling us where to go. We don't have that teacher directing and instructing us on what we need to do. We don't have this concept of due dates and having a structure, if you will. And when you lack confidence, or when the very thing that you had confidence in is no longer available and accessible to you, you find yourself sinking. Basically, you find yourself flailing around in water trying to figure it out. And that's why it's so important for your confidence to be in spirit and to be connected with your inner being, because one thing remains true is that spiritual things do not pass away. And the more you are conscious of that, the more you are awakened to that truth, it doesn't matter where you go or what room you're in or what person you're speaking to, regardless of their external five sensory realm status, you will remain confident, aka this inner knowing and quietness that permeates throughout your physical being. We're going to take a selah. It is so important and so vital for us to be mindful of this truth. Once again, this concept of confidence is having full trust in a thing. And in order to have trust in a thing, you must know that thing. And to know a thing is to experience a thing. It is to look at this thing. It is to spend time with this thing. It is to read about this thing. It is to meditate about this thing. It is to know this thing, to know its characteristics, to know what it smells like, to know what it feels like, to know what it's like to truly be intimate with this thing. And that is how you know, aka have full trust in a thing. It's like a marriage, which in this day and age, it might not be as accurate, but I truly believe that this concept of marriage, this covenant, this contract, you're entering into something, and you have so much trust and so much confidence in this connection and in this relationship and in this person that you are literally willing to sign over the rest of your life to this person. I think too often we trust in, or we make much more calculated decisions when it comes to our business than when it comes to our spirit. We will do our research and we will fact check. Hopefully we will fact check and we will get a few quotes and we will look up reviews before we purchase this product or sign this agreement. And when it comes to our spirit and when it comes to our mind, it's like we're oblivious to these concepts of testing the spirit, of testing the person, of testing the thought and the concept before we fully accept it and go into full-on confidence, aka trusting in that thing. So confidence is so much more about this inner truth and this inner reality and this inner knowing than it is about how much talent you have or how much education you have or how much money you have. And speaking about those things, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship, especially when it comes to going out and pursuing the very thing that you believe you are called to do, we oftentimes lack this sense of confidence because our trust isn't in the right place or the right person or the right things. Because a lot of us, if we had $1 million in the bank, we would go full out on the dream that we have. If we felt as if we had the right look, if we felt as if we had the right sound, if we felt as if we had the right connects, we would be so much more adamant and persistent about pursuing the dream. But when you are literally there with $1 and a dream, when it's just you believing in that dream by yourself, we tend to lack this sense of confidence because we don't have a cosign and we don't have these 5 sensory things telling us to keep going. And that is the true essence of faith. It's believing a thing when you do not have the natural evidence of this thing being true. Let's just take a deep breath. When we recognize that confidence is this inner knowing, it's this concept of having a faith that isn't necessarily proven by external factors, but we just know that we know this thing so much so that it moves us to act. It moves us to walk out, to step out. It moves us to actually start to manifest, aka produce the very thing that we believe is true on the inside of us. So oftentimes you hear this concept of faith without works is dead. But the reality of the matter is that oftentimes the work that's associated with the faith doesn't necessarily look like what the 5 sensory self is expecting. First of all, it takes work to even have faith. Like the fact that you even believe in this thing is work in itself. And when you move from belief mode into action mode, you are literally giving birth. You are literally shaping and molding this thing. You are literally constructing this thing that is coming from the inner self and from spirit to the point where you are literally making something out of nothing. So once again, confidence is to have full trust in a person and in a thing. And oftentimes we are looking for confidence in self when we really need to be looking for confidence in spirit and in the self that was created by spirit. So when you are on your search and you are on your journey of confidence, stop looking at the external factors. Stop looking for the cosigns. Stop looking for the degree and the finances and the material matter to put your trust and your full reliance in, and start to look on the inside of you. And the more you look on the inside of you, the greater that confidence becomes. And the more you look in the inside of you, the more you start to produce these things in the external realm. Remember, to have confidence is to have full trust in a thing. And to be honest, trust comes from the inside of us. We cannot see trust. We cannot go to the store and purchase 10 pounds of trust. Trust is literally knowing a thing. It's being conscious of the truth. And when you start to become more transparent and you start to become more of your authentic self, you start to operate in confidence without even knowing it. You start to do things that you would have never thought that you can actually do. Fear starts to fall off of you. Caring about what man says and caring about other people's opinions starts to become non-existent, because you are literally walking in your full, authentic, divine self. That felt good. Once again, if you are just tuning in, we are speaking about this concept called confidence. Confidence is to have full trust and reliance on a thing. Remember, the inner reality creates the outer form. So if you are looking and seeking for this concept of confidence, and if you are looking and seeking to walk in full confidence, you have to stop looking at the external things and start to look on the inside. Oftentimes our confidence is chipped away at a very early age in our lives in the form of rejection, basically telling you that you're not good enough, speaking negative things over yourself until you start to actually operate in those very things that rejected you. You start to walk around telling yourself the story of rejection, so much so that you lose that confidence, aka the full trust and reliance on spirit and the person you have been called to be, until eventually you are literally operating in that space of rejection and you are claiming it as your identity. But once again, when you start to do the inner work and when you start to recognize, acknowledge, and accept that the inner reality creates the outer form, you stop looking at man, you stop looking at five sensory things, you stop looking at material possessions, accolades, and all of these things that come from external factors and external experiences, and you start to do the life work. You start to dig a little deeper into who you are. You start to touch base with the little child in you that may still be afraid, that may still feel rejected, and you start to lift that person up. It's so amazing, and I want to leave you with this. It's so amazing. I have had multiple experiences where I literally was looking at my childhood self. I literally saw the low self-esteem self. I started to see the self that was hurt, that was battered, that was bruised by life experiences, oftentimes none of which I chose. And I found myself in this space of loving on that 5-year-old self, of loving on that 14, that 18, that 21, even 30-year-old self. I started to see myself as I am in this space and in this frame of thought, looking back and truly consoling the person I once was. So much so that I reached that point of my childhood self who really believed. I literally was brought back to this space of childlike belief, of childlike confidence. And when we get to that space where we can operate in that childlike self, everything changes. You literally become that person that believes that they can fly. You literally becomes that person that believes that they can do all things. You literally start to operate in this full trust, this full reliance, this full confidence, not only in spirit, but in the person whose spirit has called forth. Once again, if you are just tuning in, this is Life Club with me, Tashima Jones. Thank you so much for rocking with me. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you were here with me, and for that, I am truly, truly grateful. Remember to visit me at tashimajones.com for more videos, articles, how to join Life Club, and even how to download my app. Until next time, remember your greatness. Talk soon. I am Tashima Jones, and you've been listening to Life Club. Thank you for tuning in.